All right, how's it going? Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lost Like Mike. I am your host, Mike Gonzalez. This is episode 34, and the lighting's kind of weird today because my dog, I think she went on a really long walk today. She was doing they took her to a park and she was doing like the jungle gym. I mean, like I know you're picturing like, a dog on a monkey bars, but my dog just kind of went up the stairs of the little thing and down a couple times. And so I had to go pick them up at the park because the dog was like, I'm out, I'm done. When I take the dog for a walk, usually she's real gung-ho. Like she'll say like in dog language, you know what I mean? She'll pull and say, let's go, let's keep going, let's go. I'll say, you want to turn back? And she'll just tug and want to keep going. So, but usually she'll crap out like right about midway, or like last time it was midway. She sat down and she's like, let's go back. And I'm like, you don't understand, you're at the midway point. So you turn back, it's the same thing as going this way, really, but it's just maybe even shorter to go this way. So, and when she's really had enough, she'll just look at you and then lay down in the middle of nothing. And occasionally I'll carry her if she likes that, but she's heavy. But for them, they were out at the park, and they had walked out to this park, and by the time they finished playing, she had had it, and my daughter had had it too. Her leg was starting to hurt, so between the both of them, they just said, let's go pick them up. So, long story short, she's here now. When I was getting the stuff set up, I have this like plastic thing where I put my chair on, so it slides around under my desk, and my dog really likes laying on it. I guess apparently she commandeered the whole entire area. So I sort of shimmied my chair in a corner, and I said, I got to do my thing. And she sat up, and then I started putting the stuff down, and she just laid in between it, and now she's laying. I filmed a little bit of it, like the before I got it all set up. So maybe I'll put a little clip right there and show y'all. I'm hoping she starts snoring. You can hear her breathing if you listen hard. But she's needy today. She wants to be around people or me. So that's cool. Well, how are y'all doing? Thank y'all for coming by. Thank you for subscribing, for telling a friend, for checking in, for messaging me on lostlikemike@gmail.com, and for the comments and questions and whatever, and things that, making it a symbiotic relationship. I appreciate having it where it's not me just talking into the void. Although I wouldn't mind it. I kind of have accepted that idea. I ask a lot of rhetorical questions to the camera, and it's when I start answering them that I start worrying, It's been a good week. I didn't go to church today, not by choice, although I did say that if it was still still another pastor, I didn't have the energy to handle that again. And it just so happened that it wasn't the same pastor. It was a different one. Yeah. my wife and daughter had a rough night, both of their individual things going on. And, it's funny. I remember when I was little, many a sleepless night due to growing pains, severe, just these, I guess, different, like, we used to call them Charlie horses, or they'd be like, I swear the word's just, it's there, and it's looking at me. Where your muscles get tangled up in knots, and please keep yelling it at the device that you're listening or watching it on, because I'll hear it. But I keep wanting to say sprain. It's so stupid. Anyway, but yeah, it was muscle stretching and growing pains is what we know them as. But the Charlie horse refers to that other thing that I can't think of the word for. But I always think that that's what my daughter's going through. But if she runs on her weaker leg or whatever, she gets these real pains overnight. So if she walks too much in a given day or does too much physical activity, sometimes it's the muscles, sometimes it's the actual joint rubbing in the bone or whatever. I'm supposed to drink pickle juice for the thing that I'm talking about, and I can't figure it out. Oh, it's gonna bug me. I would feel so lame if I have to look it up. But anyway, and my wife I thought she slept, because I talked to her in the middle of the night. I was saying, are you sleeping on it wrong? Because I had slept on my arm wrong. And last night, as a matter of fact, and I was saying that I was getting those tinglies because the blood cut off the circulation. And she was like miserable. And I was like, were you sleeping on your arm wrong? I mean, what's going on? She had the heating pad on it, and she just had all of a sudden these pains, these severe pains. And so, hey, you can sleep here, but don't get mad. My dog just whacked the camera tripod. Oh. Okay. Yeah. She looked at me like I was bothering her, and then went back to sleep. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so she was up most of the night, or periodically throughout the night, with something with her arm. Anyway, by the time they both woke up, they both wake up crack of dawn no matter what. So they both woke up, and when I got up, they were like, we're just not going to go to church this week, because they were both exhausted. And so I didn't get my fix of that. Sorry for that slap. If you're just listening, I was clearing my mouse pad. But my computer's doing an update. Yeah, so I didn't get my fix. It turned out that the other preacher was there anyway. There was another guy there. No offense to him, he does a good job. It's just last week messed up my whole week. I mean, between that and I want to tell stories about work sometimes, but I can never say which job I'm talking about, for obvious reasons. Well, not for obvious. I mean, I've worked for a lot of different companies. I work for a lot of different places. And I would never want to disparage any of those places, because they, they financially provided for my family, throughout the years. And, they currently provide for my family now, the job that I'm at. But So I will never get into specifics of jobs, but sometimes I want to talk about things that are going on or that have gone on that I've gone through. So um I don't know. Sometimes I'm around people at shows or at work, and they'll just start going into like negative things. And I know that this show is not, it's not what it's built for. Like, it's built to express what's on my mind. And I know sometimes it's a drag to like get into things that are upsetting me or whatever. And I'm sure it's when some people want to tune out, but it's the therapy that I'm here for. So sometimes I just got to talk about it. But if you're at work or if you're in some other place, if you're at some show or somewhere and people just without warning start tearing into something negative, um it's not cool, man. I mean, especially if you're trying to be distracted and just do your work and function and not be down or depressed or I mean, I'm barely, hanging on. You just want to just let me get through the day, and then somebody says something, um, uh, it's it's not it's not appreciated, man. So sometimes I'll block people out or I'll avoid conversations altogether. If I feel that once bitten, twice shy, you know what I mean? If I feel like people are negative or downers, I look back at my search history on this computer. It makes me laugh. Oh, come on. So recently, that's kind of in my bag. I don't really like. I think sometimes people can say, they randomly say things, or they want to get into things, maybe to make themselves feel better or what have you, but it's exhausting, and I don't want to hear it. So, and currently at my work, if I'm subject to that, I'll put on my headphones and I'll play music and other distractions and if they ask me questions, I'll point at the earphones and be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Sorry, I'm not talking right now. And it seems rude, but it was gonna bug me. So I mean, there's a word for it, isn't it? They're not just called muscle knots. Adhesions? I never called it in my life that. Oh, this is obnoxious. Do you ever feel like you've said a word all your life and then somebody says that that word never existed or that's the incorrect word for something? Well, that's what's happening right now. It's not even fair. Let's see. Cramp. Cheese and crackers. Like muscle cramps in the middle of the night, when you're when you're like, man, I would get them so bad. I remember one time I was with this, like a sports retreat. I mean, it must have been 4th, 5th grade. And we were with this group of young guys. And we had gone with a coach to a gym. He had like a guest membership or something. Somehow we were all allowed to go to this gym. I remember because I was on this row simulator. And and I was racing, you know, on this row machine. So the only reason I remember that is because it was like a sleepover thing, and we're all these guys at this coach's house. And in the middle of the night, just I woke up wailing, like, whoa, like this shooting pain on my leg. My hamstring had cramped up, something like fierce. And his whole family just ran in the room like, what's wrong with this kid? And I mean, it was just wait, like, God, dog it. Ah! You know, it was painful. I remember, and this is not like a thing, but those same guys, I remember at another time, like at a sleepover. I should never go to sleepovers. I mean, I never did, but they did like this thing where they hazed me or whatever, and like I woke up with them like jumping me and like punching me or whatever, and here I am like defending myself in the middle of the night, and I'm a loud person, so I mean, even as a kid, I remember yelling, you know, while I'm defending myself against these people, and again, the coach's whole family comes in, and they're like, "What the hell's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm getting jumped by these young people." That cup is really loud. I apologize. Usually my cups aren't that loud. I have a Yeti with rattling ice. That sounds rough, but I mean, my elementary school, I mean, like everybody, like a lot of people, I was bullied a lot or whatever, or often. I was an outsider, a bit of an outsider. We've talked a little bit about that. But I remember even in transferring to, I was in a Catholic school for most of my young life. A long story about that. But the long and the short of it is it wasn't really of my doing or something that it wasn't my choice. I spent a lot of time in private schools, but then for a short period of time in the 6th grade, I was transferred into a public school, a rough public school, with my brother, and then we were pulled out because my brother had gotten into some situations there. I did too, but I didn't know it was an option to leave. But like my thing was like, I had shown up in the 6th grade, and I remember walking in this sort of outdoor area, and this group of guys, they were a gang of, there was like back then you would have distinctions, but this was like a lowrider gang. And this one guy shoulder checked me, and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, whatever. But I'm like a scrawny kid and whatever. And so I just keep walking, but you know, all of a sudden I'm just thinking, this is gonna suck. I mean, because I was used to private school hazing and bullying, which was constituted pretty much of like other scrawny kids being like name calling and whatever. I mentioned in previous episodes that I punched a bully in the stomach when I was real little because he was like twice my size and was like saying some stuff, and I didn't know what to do, so I just punched him in the gut. I think it was I often say that I was partially raised by television. Maybe I love my parents, God bless them, you know, whatever, but a lot of times the actual like for good or for bad, I would hear it on sitcoms or on programs, things to do. Sometimes it was for bad. Like I remember insulting this one girl because I'd seen on Three's Company that if you if it was in the best interest of the person, right? Like I guess Jack didn't want to be with the person that was there, so he made himself look real bad. So the person would be like, "All right, I'll tap out." And I knew that I was real bad business for this one girl. She was a friend of mine. So I started saying some real obnoxious things. We were out at some place, and I just kept saying, like, they're just the worst things, until she was like, you know what? I just, um, you know, you're trash or whatever. And then, like, I was like, thank you, Three's Company. That really worked. But, I mean, obviously it's not the right way to be, but, you know, I would take tips from that. So I guess on some TV show or some cartoon or something, it said that you needed to take an aggressive stance against bullies and like beat them to the punch, and so to speak. And like if they were coming at you, bullying you, to just hit them, or like, and again it worked. So I hit him in the stomach. He started crying, and then I said, "Dude, I wouldn't have hit you. I don't want to hit you, but why are you so mean?" Whatever. And he ended up being like my best friend for a while. Oh, did I bother you, little doggy? I guess my incessant talking upset my dog, because she got up and went to go lay across the room. Yeah, but if you ever think about the things that you learn from TV, I was just thinking, there was this cop show that I was watching the other night, and it was on, was it Amazon? Anyway, it was the show's called Bosch. It's kind of it's like, I haven't watched The Wire, but I hear references to it. Like, it's a procedural cop show, and they're pretty accurate with some of the lingo and things that go on. Bosch. They just they have a new show, Bosch Legacy, where they maintain it because the show ended right at the pandemic. I guess. Oh, sorry. I'm doing a podcast. We'll talk later. I'm just kidding. She does it all the time. She just randomly starts talking to me.
Sorry, I don't understand.
I'm the worst with technology. I don't even know why I bother. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. And so Bosch says on the show, he says, either all lives matter or no lives matter. And the context of what he was talking about had to do with like the death of this little girl, and these other unknown Jane Does from like that were immigrants from different parts of the world, that they couldn't figure out the names of these persons. And he keeps pictures of them on his desk so that he can find, like, continue to investigate their murders or whatever. But, and I'm taking the long way around to say this, but I heard that, and it spoke to me in terms of like, things matter. We were having a conversation about sometimes it feels like finding purpose in the things that you do seems difficult, but it the trivial things matter as much as the important things, right? Some things, like all things matter or nothing matters. And we had talked about how it seemed like there's no reason for anything, but there's sort of two sides of that coin. Maybe everything matters. And anyway, if you're looking for deep thoughts and you're watching TV programs, it's, not necessarily going to be the way it goes. You might not find the secrets that way. But I mean, I remember from a very young age, we spent a lot of time at my aunt's house, which was my grandparents' house. And so a lot of time was spent watching PBS. And PBS is so underrated because between Sesame Street and they used to have all the letter people and I got the tail end of the Electric Company. I was a little too young for that, but Mr. Rogers, and you would, I sometimes really think that I really do think that I am dyslexic as well, or I have learning disabilities myself. But watching those programs over and over, it was like this reinforced learning strategy where I would hear, I must have seen the letter, on the letter people, it would be like, it's the letter M, and it'd be 10, 20 times, you see the same thing over and over. Numbers, letters, just this reinforcement of these simple earlier lessons that that probably, helped me a ton. And I don't know what it was. It was like some sort of agenda between the 80s and 90s where they felt like this moral obligation to teach children, and all that's out the window a lot of times when you're talking about the cartoons or the things that are out right now. And back then you'd have at the end of every episode of G.I. Joe, there'd be these little tiny moral stories, and you'd learn something. Maybe I'm dating myself, but it's true. You'd have some kind of lesson. I think it was even Mask had some at the end of theirs. And G.I. Joe was knowing's half the battle. Oh, you're not supposed to punch other kids in the face? No, and knowing's half the battle. G.I. Joe. And then you'd be wiser at the end of it. Yeah, half the time I didn't even know that I was learning stuff when I was watching Mr. Rogers or something. And then you look back at some of these things, it was just decency. It was providing a moral compass when you didn't really necessarily have one. Coming up in private schools, Catholic-based schools, Christian-based schools, whatever, it was Catholic-based schools, but a lot of time you would get that, that those morals, but with a religious basis, fear of consequence, hell, the devil, whatever. But with Mr. Rogers or with these other ways, it was Bert and Ernie or whatever it was just be cool to each other because that's what's the right thing to do or whatever. It's just I don't know. But PBS is totally underrated. I remember we would watch episodes of that, and then they would watch their Young and the Restless and the soap operas, One Life to Live, and As the World Turns. All those. I knew a lot of them before I knew what was up. I remember once I was watching. I was too young. I was dating this pretty wonderful person. She was great, but I was just way too young. I didn't know nothing from nobody, and we were watching a soap opera together, and the one guy was like, "I really love you, but I love you so much that I'm gonna let you go, because you really want to be with that guy, and I love you so much. I want you to be with that guy." I don't even know if that's how it went down. It might have been the girl saying it, but one way or the other, that was the context. That was what was happening. The guy was arguing, or the girl was arguing, that they loved the other one so much that they wanted to give that person freedom and send them off to like hook up with somebody else. Not like in a swinger way, like in a more like a you're free to go, like we're done. And I remember this girl who was, a little bit older and a little bit more insightful. She's like, I was like, I don't understand that. Like, with all that young guy insecurity and dumbness, I was like, I don't get it. Obviously, he didn't care about it because he just whatever. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, when you truly care about somebody, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I would let you go. And I remember being like, this, all right. And then we ended it. We ended our relationship over it. Like, I remember being like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But if you could walk away from this, obviously you don't really care. I was just young and dumb. But that's just another instance of like TV influencing its making its art impacting life, impacting art. Yeah. But you got to find your lessons where you find them. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was where I first got turned on to chess, but I remember playing, learning how to play chess, and I was pretty good at it. And it was one of those things where 50-50. Like sometimes I rocked at it. Sometimes I didn't. I wasn't one of those like Fisher, what's that guy's name? Who just like knew all these memorized strategies and would just navigate the board with expertise. I was more like if I was if mentally I was checked in, if I was dialed in, then I could kind of foresee some different options and I could make moves, right? But it was the first time that I realized that there were life lessons in a game. The art of, or to like look 2-3 steps ahead instead of just being so focused on what's right in front of you and, ooh, I could take this right now. Instead saying, wait a minute, if I took this right now, I'd make myself vulnerable for this, and then this could happen or that could happen. Well, let's just take a beat and figure this out. You know what I mean? And that was a huge life lesson that nobody ever pulled me aside and said, you know what, you should think like this, or you should consider these options before you make a move. But I was thinking about that the other day. Um, like where do you find the things that you know? And like my wife, for example, I could sit there until I'm blue in the face, and I could say like, "This is the better option. This is the way. That's not the right way to do it. We should do this." And it's almost like, "No, you're crazy." But if some like somebody with a credential, we'll say, even if they're on like a TikTok or like a YouTube channel, whatever it is, if it's a doctor or somebody with some sort of, I mean, it's just the strangest thing. Or like her mom or somebody else says the same thing. She'll call or text me and say, "Ooh, guess I have this great idea. I heard this great idea that I think we should really give a try to." And I'll be like, I don't get it. What, how did I say it wrong? Um, but it's just what communicates to somebody, what rings true to them. They used to have that idea that you could put something out into the world, and it'll come back. Somebody will tell it to you. Like you could share that idea with somebody, and then eventually they're going to come back to you and bring it as if it was their own idea. It's like planting these seeds or whatever. Maybe I do that all the time. Maybe I am just regurgitating ideas that I've been talked to. Sorry. My elbow kept turning on the computer until it said, "I'm going to need a password now," because something fishy is going on. I try not to judge, but it is frustrating because, like, for example, my daughter goes to she went to specialists for different things, and a lot of the things that I suggested early on, my wife's coming back and saying, we should do this and we should do that. And it's like, after spending the money on the specialist, it's like, oh, it's frustrating. But I listened back to some old tapes, some music, and I was self-admitted. I've never, natural talent, you know what I mean? I was never really one to have just like a prodigy of any sort. I've never really had that. I've always wanted things that I couldn't do and worked really hard to be remotely decent at any of it. But and I've talked a little bit about that on the podcast, as far as like, I remember I was talked about being in the studio and having the producer dial in and say, "Hey, can we try that again on key?" Or can you try to make it sound halfway decent, whatever. When I was really young, like, because I started singing with the group when I was 13, 14. I always wanted to. I would write music, but I was just really bad. But I have a lot of pride in what I do now. I think I've earned the right to say that I can sing or that I can play music or do whatever. I've done it professionally for many years. And it's weird that I have to quantify, like, I have to justify it. I should just be able to say, yeah, I can sing, or yeah, I can play music, or I could draw, or I could, whatever it is. But it's weird that I feel the need to justify it. Like, I should be able to say it because, whatever, because I've done it for so long. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. But like, listening back to recordings and things from when I was really young, I struggled a lot. And it's hard for me to listen to older stuff. I'm sure it's true for everybody that they have a hard time listening to earlier work or whatever that they have. But I really do. I feel like it's it's bad, you know. Uh, I have always been looking for my own sound, or looking for, how I want to do something vocally, and so it's challenged my confidence in myself, as far as listening to things that I've done. I don't like it. It frustrates me. And there was something I was going with that. I'm basically trying to say that in listening to it, I see how far I've come, but I also know where that insecurities come from, because I don't know. It kind of came up in a time where you wouldn't think that things would be haunting you for the rest of your life. This putting things on the cloud and it's there forever, what have you. You felt like there was room to grow. But I'll listen to, like, there's a lot of talented young people, and it frustrates me when people are like, look at this, only 14 years old, how talented. 8 years old, how talented, whatever it is. And it didn't make sense to me, but now it makes sense to me, because I know that at that same age, I was really trying to figure things out. And sometimes these kids have been doing it right since they were grade school age, just either naturally talented or given the right instructions and the right guidance to develop their skills early on. So I really want to get my daughter into some sort of vocal lessons. I mean, I could teach her to an extent, but I swear my daughter thinks that I'm an idiot half the time. I mean, only because I guess that's how she's learned to play with me and be like, she's just like her mom in that respect, I guess. Maybe she just needs somebody with the credentials to instruct her, but she's really good. I can tell that she has a good ear, because she sings along with the different, like Matilda, the musical that's out right now, and different Disney shows that have songs. And even though she doesn't know what words she's saying, she can hit those notes and the vowel sound, mouths, whatever. But I want to help her develop those things. And not that I blame, or because I was always surrounded by music all my life. It's not like I can blame anybody for my lack of innate talent. It just, I struggled in the development, of that talent. But now it's something where I still kind of want to keep developing, but it makes me like, I often think about how people can just go on TikTok, sit down in front of the thing with the guitar, and then sing a song and post it up. And it's not perfect, but they can do it. They can put 100 of them out there. And I freeze up. Like, something holds me back from just posting it. And it's not, for some reason, it's different than this. Where this, I'm kind of like, oh, what are you doing? With the podcast, I understand what it is. The faults, flaws and all is what comes. It's really just an opportunity for me to get thoughts off my mind and share with people. And if they relate to it, cool. If not, no big deal. I don't look at the numbers. I'm not interested in those things. I'd love to do fun things like redo the title sequence, or maybe have like, but if not, it's okay. I'll still come on here and still talk. And I know I'll talk a little bit about this. What value do we put on things? Sentimental value. And do y'all put value? For example, my son was given a truck from his great-grandfather. And there's nothing that it was not like the first truck that his great-grandfather ever owned. There's no significance to the truck itself. It was a truck that he had for a while, and then he didn't really use it. And my son was doing his business. He has a landscaping thing, and so he has to borrow it, and over a duration of time of using it to help him with his business, his grandfather said, yo, just keep the truck, right? And I guess in a sense of, if you could justify it and say, well, at a time when he was creating his business and establishing himself as an entrepreneur, he was given this truck because his grandfather believed in it, great-grandfather believed in him, or what have you. But I was having a conversation with him, and it's going to sound weird, but so his grandfather gave him a truck, and his great-grandfather gave him a truck. And before you think, well, wow, what kind of life is this kid leading, right? He's like 17 and he's got 2 trucks parked out front. Let's slow down, because there were circumstances that led to him receiving these items, and they were not brand new by any means. And like, for example, the truck that his grandfather gave him is non-functioning and sitting outside of this house. Okay? But what I told him was, why don't you sell both of these trucks that aren't in the best condition? They're old. And let's, invest in one used truck that, is a bit more functioning, right? And his argument was that he didn't want to part with this truck because of sentimental value. And I don't get it. And it makes me sound real callous, heartless even. But I know that his great-grandfather's not, and his great-grandfather's really, old. I get that. But I know the great-grandfather didn't put any value in that truck as being like some sort of sentimental anything. It was just like a utility. Like, you could use it, whatever. In a heartbeat, I know that he would sell it for something better and newer, if given the opportunity. But it got me thinking, like, I was given a set of golf clubs. I don't golf. I have very bad vision. So it's like you hit the ball and I couldn't tell you where it went. Like, I don't know how people do it. I would have to get LASIK. There's no way. I don't know where the golf ball is. It would be the biggest waste of time. I went one time to a golf course. I hit the ball and I'm looking and I said, where do we go? I don't even know. Are we done? Was that it? Because your guess is as good as mine where that ball is. Anyway, but I was given a set of golf clubs by my father-in-law. And right now I feel very cluttered. I'm in this frame of mind where I want to downsize. I want to get rid of stuff. I just feel like I own too much crap. I have too much stuff. I've never been that type of person. I sold a guitar. I sold some items. I just wanted. And I posted the golf clubs. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're worth something. They're worth it because they're not cheap, but reselling golf clubs, it's not whatever. And then I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, she's not sure that she wants me to sell the golf clubs. And again, for sentimental value, because they were given. And I need some help. I don't understand. Like my father left a ring for me. He didn't leave it necessarily. I asked for it when I was little, and I'm supposed to get it resized. And that I consider sentimental because it was something that he had for a very long time. And I remember seeing it as a kid. He wore it for a long time and then stopped wearing it for whatever reason. So I'll keep that thing forever, as long as I can. I kept my wedding ring from my first marriage, and then it was stolen from the people that do the car cleaning at CarMax. They were I had a truck that I had turned in, traded in. I took it to CarMax, and I literally just drove off property, and then came back and said, "Hey, I left some items in the glove box," and they were gone. And it was some rings on a chain. But it's hard to keep sentimental, but you know what I'm saying? When you put value to things, I don't know. I own probably one trunk that has everything that that I always thought when I got to college, I remember carrying everything I owned in one bag on my back. And it was like I had one bag and a guitar. That was me. And you always want to be that untethered. At least that's the way I always felt. But even now, I mean, I see all the stuff. And like my brother was a bit of a hoarder. He kept a lot of things. For good or for bad, I mean, there's a lot of photographs and memorabilia that if it wasn't for him, I would never have seen. Right? But then, like, for example, my son, I have a closet full of his toys and stuff that he had accumulated here because he lived with his mom and would only come for visitation. That some stuff he never played with, some stuff it's been 10 years since he's even looked at, some of it. But I remember I go over to his house and he's very sentimental. But I'll go to his house. That's like, I'm going to help you clean your room. I'm going to help you get organized. And this child, I'm telling you, keeps slips of paper that had significance, I mean, from elementary school, he would have like papers that had grades on them or whatever. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I don't want that future for you. I don't want you to have like, I don't know. I feel like it's a gateway thing where like you keep elementary school papers with like grades on it. Next thing you know, you have bags of poop that you've been collecting all week because you don't want to flush it. Granted, that's extreme. I'm just saying I've seen those TV shows, okay? So if ever I feel like I'm hanging on to something too long, I really want to just get rid of it. And maybe that's, maybe that's more my problem than his. But yeah, so I need help understanding sentimental value. As I get it, there's certain things that I keep that have significance. I kept that shirt of that fish. I love that t-shirt. And so I made it into a picture. But where do you draw the lines, what I'm asking? Do you keep a car that's not working or that is going to die on you and you're going to be stuck with a useless vehicle? Because I'm about to give him my old car. And my thoughts are, I'm going to hand you a car. And I just can't do it. You're going to be stuck with this vehicle like well, first of all, he's already in the process of trying to sell the one. Lord help him, because the reason why I have a very economic car, good on gas, right? And I want him to have a pickup truck that does his job, and then a car that he could drive around to do errands and whatnot, so that he does not wasting gas all the time. But right now it just looks like he's going to be this young kid with like 10 cars. Sometimes I feel, I was at this event for my daughter. She was doing like this cheerleading thing. And I'm up on the stands, and no less than 2 kids decided to poop next to me. One baby on this side and then another baby on this side. Like, and bad too, like, where I just was like, oh no, that child definitely, yeah. The woman got up, took the child, went off that way. And I guess the other child was inspired by this one, because all of a sudden I'm waiting to end. And they go, firm, that's it. Another one over here on this side. And I feel like, so if you think that's just a trend, right? So maybe coincidence a couple times, whatever. So I'm at work, and I'm in the restroom, right? At a urinal. And somebody walks behind me and what do you call that? And then just sometimes I can't think of the word, but just all the way, like, why by me? And then a little bit, 2 seconds later, right? I go over to wash my hands. I'm at the sink. And then somebody getting ready to walk out the door is right behind me and just decides to, like, before they leave for the day, out the door. And I turn around, do I have a sign on me that says that I want to be, I just didn't, I get all awkward around it in the first place. I don't know how people can go and, it's like, yeah, that's where you're supposed to go. I felt like I was being, like, crop dusted was the words that I was trying to remember. And the dog just did it to me right now, too. She slept through the whole show. But anyway, the show went off the rails real bad. But thank y'all for hanging out with me. I enjoyed it. It was fun. I'll try to clean up some of the dead space. But have a great week. We'll see you next time. Take care.